All right, welcome back, finally, to another episode of the Browns Beat podcast. I am one half of your co-host, Tristan. I'm here with my man, Derek. Derek, how have we been? It has been a while. Listen, it's the time of the season where there's no news at all, and we got some news, so we're back finally enough to actually have a whole podcast for. But Derek, how have you been, my guy? It has been a minute.
It has certainly been some time. Me and Tristan were talking about it before we started. Just setting up was like, got to remember how to do this again. But yeah, no. If I were to sit here and explain the last part of my life since we last did a podcast, you would be like, "What is going on?" A lot of craziness going on. I'll leave it at that. But all in all, we're here. Thank God, we're doing good. Like you said, it's a weird point in the season. It's not like other seasons for the Browns where you're really pumped about camp and preseason, like we've mentioned. But huge news today regarding the future of the Browns, and a lot of discussions going on with the Cleveland Browns in the NFL world right now. So, with that being said, we are going to hop into it. But first, Tristan, how are you doing, sir? It's been a while.
Dude, it has been a while. Just working a lot, and gonna expand a little bit upon like that, not getting too excited about camp stuff. Like, I'm sure there are people still really excited, really deep into camp this year. You and I are both on the same page where it's like this year, like, you know, camp preseason doesn't really matter. It's, for me, it's all about week one. And this is the first year where I really feel that way, where it's like, I don't care. Because trivia, like, let me see if any of you guys are diehards enough. We talked about this before the podcast started. Do you guys even remember the wide receiver who had a great preseason with us last year? The guy who absolutely lit it up in preseason. You can't remember his name. It's Austin Watkins. Okay.
I was about to say, you started to pause, and I was like, Tristan, they're not going to answer. This isn't live.
No, but yeah, no, like, seriously, like, that was so long ago, and he was a player that killed it in preseason. Didn't even touch a ball in the regular season.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I've just been kind of tuned out of preseason. I'm ready for week one. But with that being said, we do have some news to talk about before we get to week one, before we get to preseason games. Derek, the Cleveland Browns have released renderings for a projected $2.4 billion state-of-the-art stadium that resides in Brook Park. And Derek, I don't know about you, man, but when I was looking at those renderings, I was thinking to myself, oh my God. Like, I don't think it's possible for this to happen in Cleveland. A stadium like this, the not only just the stadium, but everything around it. Like, it's just so beautiful, state of the art. Derek, when you looked at those renderings of the Brook Park stadium, did it kind of flip your mindset as far as to the priority that staying in Cleveland should be? Or I guess what were your overall thoughts, especially before and after seeing those stadium renderings in the project itself?
Yeah, it's official. We're the Brook Park Browns. For better, for worse, there's a lot of people upset about it. Listen, my opinion has kind of changed a little bit. I was all for getting a dome, which, thank God, the Browns are not making the same mistake as the Buffalo Bills. It is a dome. Always a good thing. And the problem is just the logistics of it. And the problem here is you involve politics, taxes, those sorts of issues with the city of Cleveland and trying to get a stadium built. And, the unfortunate reality is it just wasn't going to happen. It was not going to happen downtown Cleveland. There was a $1 billion renovation proposed, but ultimately you can't put lipstick on a pig and expect it to last. That's just what it is. So Yeah, $2.4 billion stadium. The renderings look incredible. Absolutely incredible. We've been to plenty of Browns games, Tristan. We've been to Cleveland Browns Stadium. I was just there literally a couple of days ago. And as we talked about before the podcast, my number one takeaway was thank God, because we need a new stadium desperately. It is rough. It is rough. Cleveland Browns Stadium, it's home of our favorite team, but we got to look ourselves in the mirror here and realize that stadium sucks. It is not good. However, do I want the Browns downtown Cleveland? Absolutely. Do I want the Browns on the lake? Absolutely. If anything could be done to change this that could make that happen, would do it in a heartbeat. I think the Browns belong in Cleveland, belong on the lake, but it's just not a reality. It's not a simple fix. This is what we have. We have the option of Brook Park, and we're now the Brook Park Browns. So, listen, the fact that the Haslams are going to put this amount of money into the future of this team, building a state-of-the-art stadium that looks great, looks unbelievable, I think it's going to pay off. I think it's going to help the city of Cleveland as well. I think it's going to bring a lot of people, a lot of money into the area. And Tristan, I don't know if you got to see the video, but the renderings of other events being at the new Cleveland Browns Stadium, that's what I'm excited about, because that looked sick. Some of the concerts, sporting events. SummerSlam was just in Cleveland, which is where I was at. I can't even imagine what an event like a WrestleMania or SummerSlam again or something like that, being in this new Cleveland Browns Stadium would be unreal. Unreal. So I'm excited, to say the least. The Browns lease with current Cleveland Browns Stadium ends in 2028. So if you want a timetable on when this is going to happen, we have another 4 to 5 years, I would say. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited. Tristan, Brook Park Browns, baby. What are we thinking here?
Yeah, so let me start by sharing the same sentiment, that, obviously if it could work in Cleveland, we want it to work in Cleveland, because at the end of the day, it's the Cleveland Browns, right? And there's a lot of history there. But at the same time, I think you and I are both at the standpoint, and I think a lot of Browns fans are kind of becoming accepting of this as well. It's just it's not possible. It's not possible. For many reasons, moving to Brook Park is the right move. Logistically, let's start there. For starters, it's now a 60,000 seater right next to a major airport. Tell me any big concert, any big comedian, any big musical act, whatever, that wouldn't try to book to get into this stadium, because it's so convenient, right away, like right off to the side from the airport. And not only that, but it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's so many seats. Like it's going to be a stadium that year round gets a lot of use. I think you would be shocked if it went 1 week throughout the year where nobody was in there. That logistically, that makes sense. Cleveland Browns Stadium, like right now, like we, like you said, we had SummerSlam, but how many events realistically are going on in there throughout the year? Not enough, in my opinion. Let's talk about money wise too, because it does matter here. Now, albeit nothing is set in stone. A lot of this is secondhand information, so it's possible that a lot of this stuff could potentially not be completely accurate. So we know that Mayor Bibb, mayor of Cleveland, offered, I think it was north of $400 million from the city for renovations for Cleveland Browns Stadium. That would be going straight out of taxpayers' pockets, and it would end up cutting out programs that in the city of Cleveland would need that funding. Whether we want to admit it or not, that's what would happen. How is that any different than what's going on in Brook Park? In Brook Park, albeit these details are not finalized. They're not set in stone at all. So I want to make that very clear right here, right now. But in Brook Park, Haslam's own the land. They're developing the land themselves, and essentially, they aren't getting any additional funding from Brook Park that has been reported yet. What it's been is that they are going to essentially get big time like tax relief, especially I believe the way it's going to be negotiated is an X amount of years of like non-taxed, right? And so while you won't be making any money off of that for X amount of years, you're gonna make more money off of the businesses around the new Cleveland Browns stadium, starting to boom because it's there. You're going to get more, at least Brook Park will, revenue around there, and then eventually, when those years pass, then you're going to start making some good money. But why is that important? Why does that matter? Well, because it's not going to be coming out of taxpayer pockets, at least what has been reported. I want to make sure I hammer that down. So in my mind, from a political standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. I think that it makes a lot of sense in that regard. Logistically, it makes a ton of sense. We have been talking about this. We need a stadium with a dome. I know that there are people that like the outdoor, like football was born outdoors.
Michael Cozy.
Yeah, like for me, it's just at some point you have to look at how can we set this team up to be set up for the future for the rest of time. Yeah. This is the type of move that does that. And that might sound like a crazy, bold statement, but I don't think it is. This is the type of stadium, this is the type of home that not only will the Haslams make a lot of money by being able to have events year-round in Cleveland Browns Stadium, and not only will Brook Park also make a lot of revenue in the future off of tax revenues, but also we have to remember it's not just the stadium that they bought the land. They're buying land to also have fan experiences, pro shops, other outside events. Like you saw that highlighted in the renderings, that outside of the stadium, they're going to have a lot of events and a lot of things going on. And all of those things are things that directly go into the Haslam's pocket. Now, you might say, Tristan, why do you think that's a good thing? The reason why that's a good thing is because the Haslams have been, especially since the time Andrew Berry has taken over as GM and Paul Tibodesta has become the leading voice in the organization, the Haslams have invested so much money into this football team. Yeah. And this incentivizes them to keep on investing. It doesn't give them a reason to stop investing. And if there's a day where they no longer own the Browns, there's going to be revenue coming outside of the stadium that is going to enable the new owners to still invest the money that we've been getting invested in. For me, that's future-proofing. And I think that sets us up for long-term success. Now, before I go into the actual stadium, looks, the vibes and everything like that, the cool excitement that I have, let me hit it back. Let me go back to you, Derek. In regards to everything outside of the looks, like, you kind of talked about it. Like, it makes sense for us to do this, right? If Cleveland can't work, which it just won't. We see what the vision is. That's not possible in Cleveland. What are your thoughts on, kind of the logistics side of it, but then also kind of go into, tell me about how you feel it looks.
Yeah. I want people to understand. I want the Cleveland Browns to be downtown Cleveland. I want the Cleveland Browns to be on the lake. It's just not possible. Logistically, it wasn't possible. Politically, it wasn't possible. Financially, it wasn't possible. And you might say, well, Jimmy Haslam has the money. Well, it's not just Jimmy Haslam forking out a huge check and saying, let's get this done. This is the Haslams working with the city of Cleveland, working with the leaders, working with Mayor Bibb, trying to figure all this out. And it was not possible. As great as it was or could have been, hopefully in a perfect world, it just wasn't going to happen. This was the best decision for the future of the Cleveland Browns. It was a decision that, as you mentioned, this is a long-term financial investment. And when you look at how much teams are selling for in the NFL, it's going up and up and up and up. And what the Haslams are doing, they're investing a ton of money, $2.4 billion stadium. But what you mentioned, what they're doing around it, they're developing the land and they're kind of building almost like the subsection outside of Cleveland that is an extension of Cleveland. And that's going to benefit the Haslams, it's going to benefit the state of Ohio, and it's going to benefit the Cleveland area. So it's not as simple as, hey, I want the stadium on the lake. I do too. I would do anything to move this exact stadium where current Cleveland Browns stadium is. It wasn't going to happen. It wasn't possible. But don't let that take away from what we're getting here. This is unbelievable, incredible, state of the art, something you can be proud of, something you can be enthusiastic going into every Sunday. A stadium like this, it looks incredible from the inside. Now, Tristan, it is funny because there's a lot of people, especially fans of other teams, that are like, man, that kind of looks like a warehouse, or it kind of looks like a mall. I want people to understand this. There is a reason why from the outside it does not look big. As you mentioned, the airport is right there. You can't build too high next to an airport. So the stadium is kind of, similar to the big house in Ann Arbor, where it's kind of built in. So that's what this is. I want everybody out there who is not a fan of the Cleveland Browns to understand that is why it looks the way it does. But it's awesome. It's amazing. I love the glass roof, or the glass ceiling. I think that's a really good look. We heard that they took a lot of inspiration from Minnesota Vikings Stadium, so makes a lot of sense. The dog pound is fascinating, Tristan, because the dog pound is now one huge section from bottom to top, all connected. As somebody who just sat in the dog pound for SummerSlam, I am very excited for these changes. I think this is going to look awesome. I think it is going to be, it's a game changer. I think it's a game changer for the Browns. It's a game changer for the city of Cleveland. I'm interested to see kind of the interior decorating of all of it. Like, what's the dog pound going to look like? What's the locker rooms going to look like? All those sorts of things. But all in all, I'm pumped. I'm very pumped. I think, at the end of the day, everybody's going to come around to it. It's going to take some getting used to. But I'm very excited. And as you said, it's an investment in this team. The Browns, the Haslams, Andrew Berry, I know it hasn't been like a long-term thing, but the Browns extended Andrew Berry. They extended Kevin Stefanski. They view those two as the heads of this ship. The Haslams are putting the financial behind it. And if you're really all in and you're going to take this team into the future the best you can, you want a dome. We're playing in Cleveland, Ohio. Lake Erie is literally right next to the stadium. The weather's not great. The wind swirls, snow, rain. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to play in Cleveland Browns Stadium. It is. If you want your team to be successful long term, you needed to build a dome. Tristan, we've talked about it how many times. The New Orleans Saints came into Cleveland in the winter and beat the Browns at home. That is just unacceptable. So this whole weather is our advantage and this is how we are. That's great. Love it. Love the enthusiasm. It's not realistic and it's not the reality. That's just what it is. So this had to be done. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see more. I'm very excited to see the developments and just kind of the stuff that comes out over time as we learn more about it. But yeah, it's interesting to say the least. It's fun.
Yeah, and to add on to that, like, home field advantage weather thing, like I hope people realize that, like, it's not like we're playing players that were born and bred in Cleveland, Ohio, and went to Ohio State. Like, over half of our roster we got from the SEC. Like
LSU.
these guys, yeah, LSU, Bama, Aaron Emerson's like Mississippi State, like we almost everybody on our roster comes from like a southern school, like and raised in the South. Like there's not a lot of like, guys born in the North that have played in the cold their entire life on this roster. There's not a ton of them. I mean, our quarterback went to Clemson. Like, like there's so many examples of it. And I just think it's a biased argument. But the beauty of this stadium, the design is beautiful. It's so gorgeous. The glass roof. I have been looking up at, like,
I know,
in
me
the background
too.
the whole
Yeah.
time, like looking at this ceiling, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, for those who are wondering, and maybe if it wasn't something that has been explained to you so far, the reason why the stadium is at a slant is for acoustics. It is to make the stadium louder. The reason why is because, can I point to?
They probably won't see it, but
Fuck. Oh, here we go. So, over further, like pretty much right behind where Derek is where the dog pound is going to be, right?
Yep.
Where it's all that one huge section, like you said. When those voices are coming across from here, they're going to go up and they're going to bounce off of this roof. And it is going to travel along the roof and pretty much circulate throughout the stadium. That's what the sound waves are going to do. This stadium is going to be, if not the loudest, one of the loudest stadiums in the league. It's going to be... You want to talk about a home field advantage? Imagine having the loudest stadium in the league. That is what this stadium is going to do. And it's beautiful, and I love it. The other thing that I really like is it is a glass roof. You have so much natural light that it's almost like you're not really playing in a dome. Like it's essentially like insulated outdoors or weather controlled outdoors. Like there's not going to be this issue with like just the typical like dome type of feel where you kind of feel like cramped in and like there's nothing special about it. It doesn't feel like football. It feels like arena football almost. Like I don't think we're gonna get that vibe here. We're gonna get a lot of natural light. It's gonna look good. I'm confident in that. And just everything that surrounds the stadium too just looks so gorgeous. And there was something that was really interesting to me, and that was like the tailgating. I thought that they are embracing the tailgating, and not only that, but imagine we have a home playoff game in Cleveland, and I know they kind of very subtly viewed it or showed it throughout the renderings. They're going to be able to stream the games against like big sections of the stadium or areas around, so that way we can actually go to Cleveland Browns Stadium and watch the game from outside the stadium. Like, you remember those shots of just downtown Cleveland going absolutely berserk after outside of the queue when when the Cavs won the championship. Like, I feel like if we are lucky enough to get to that moment, we could have moments like that outside of the stadium. And I think that would be really cool, and I think that'd be really unique. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Now, Derek, I talked a little bit about the looks. What are some of your, and we talked about how much we like this in this renderings and how great everything looks. What are some of your concerns when it comes to the Brook Park Stadium? Because I know I do have a couple concerns.
So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a concern, but I'm interested to see how they go about fixing this problem where it currently is, if that makes sense. So, okay, current Cleveland Browns Stadium, being where it's at on the lake, there's one way in and there's one way out, right? All the traffic, all the, post-game, pre-game, you're all coming in one way and you're going out one way. it's cool when you're walking back to your car and you're in a sea of people who are all Browns fans and you're all kind of this, unrelated family. It's sick. It's awesome. It's a cool environment. But, but it sucks. It's not fun. It is not fun trying to get there. It's not fun trying to get out of there. The nice thing about Brook Park, based on what I've been told, because obviously I don't live in Cleveland, I've never been to Brook Park, at least I don't remember in my lifetime, it's going to be a lot better as far as the traffic flow, parking, all those sorts of things. I think the Browns, the Haslams in this development, they really need to put a priority on that, trying to figure this problem out, because it is a problem. It is a problem. As far as concerns go, I mean, I would say more so I have questions than concerns right now. It's more of like logistics things of, okay, how's this going to work? What is this going to look like? Some of the stuff that we have going right now. But I do want to pivot just a tad and touch on what you mentioned, the sound, right? Going back to SummerSlam real fast and going back to times that have been really loud in that stadium, that even when me and you were there, right? That stadium gets loud, right? And Roman Reigns returned for the first time in 4 months a couple days ago at SummerSlam. I don't know what just happened. My light just went out. I'll fix that in 1 second. But it was loud. It was unbelievably loud in that stadium. I couldn't barely hear myself. I have it on video. You can hear how loud it is. Chunk, I don't know how many of you guys know Chunk. I don't think he's ever been on this channel. But anyway, friend of mine, also there, he said he couldn't hear his cousin who was right next to him. So that's how loud it was in current Cleveland Browns Stadium. Imagine this stadium, Tristan. Because last year at the home opener, when Myles Garrett sacked Joe Burrow, the roar was insane. Absolutely insane, right? Jets game when we clinched the playoffs. Insane. I can't even imagine having a stadium designed and built for even more noise. If you have kids, you better bring earplugs, because eardrums are going to be hurting when you leave Cleveland Browns Stadium. But I'll throw it over to you, and I'm going to go fix my light.
Dude, just imagining the sound of a home playoff game in that stadium would be insane. I mean, I remember, and we've talked about this moment a few times, where I remember when Jerome Ford got that went berserk and went on that beast mode like run and got that touchdown against the Jets, and just how loud the stadium was in that moment. And the Ronnie Hickman pick six, like the just that one game, like the loudness of that moment, and just the joy in the atmosphere, like it was just so palpable and you could feel it in your blood. And I don't know about you, man, but that night I went home after the adrenaline had kind of worn down a little, and my legs, like my knees, my feet were just aching because we were standing and jumping the whole time, like even tailgating. And it's just like moments like that were amazing. Imagine how much louder and how much more like adrenaline's can be pumping through your veins in those moments in this stadium. It's gonna be exciting. But let me now pivot to a couple of my concerns. And again, similar to like what you said, it's more so questions than concerns at this time. Because go for it.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but before you do that, thought that crossed my mind when I was going to plug my light back in, which, by the way, I don't know how that happened. I don't know what just happened.
I thought Hell's Bells were going to go off and Undertaker was going to...
I was about to say, I was like... but no, thought I had... Cleveland is home to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
If you have a stadium, a brand new stadium, designed for more noise, like we've already mentioned it, but the events that are going to go there are going to be insane. But Cleveland, Ohio is the home of rock and roll. Bro, could you imagine some of the concerts that's gonna be there.
The acoustics that
Yeah.
they would get is incredible. Like that's the other part with like this slant here is essentially they showed it in the renderings, like pretty much where Derek is right now, is where the stage would be, and so all that sound again is traveling up. Like it's perfect acoustics. So like the concerts that will be there, the musicals that will be there, whatever the events that will take place there are going to be awesome, especially acoustics wise.
Yeah, but that was just a random thought I had. Was like, man, you got the airport right there. You got the Hall of Fame down the street, bro.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm pumped.
I'm
But
pumped
anyway,
too.
sorry. Back to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm thankful that you cut me off there before I went, excuse me, into my questions / concerns that I had. The very first thing is cost. Whenever there's a major development like this, oftentimes it can skyrocket the costs, which I think would be unfair, especially to the Browns fans who've had season tickets for years and years and years and have been loyal to this team through thick and thin and a lot of thick, a lot of tough times. I think that it would be unfair if, season tickets are now 25% more. I think that would be ridiculous, right? We know that there pretty much it's almost never going to happen ever again where ticket prices drastically go down in price because of the weather. That's not going to happen here. So, as fans, I think we can kind of take that on the chin and accept that. You know what? Listen, we're not going to be able to go to some bad weather games and get as cheap of tickets as we used to, even when the team is good. Or even when the team is bad, I should say. So cost is my first concern. What's the cost gonna look like for the average fan? Because if it's gonna stay the same, or I could understand like a 10% increase. Like I could understand that, right? But if it skyrockets, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Especially if parking around the stadium is going to be a lot more expensive. If all of the extracurricular stuff that we're talking about, like around the stadium, the activities are really expensive. I want to make sure that this is something that the majority of fans can afford to enjoy. That for me is the most important thing. The other thing is, and this is something that always comes up when we talk about indoor stadiums, and especially in football. Are we playing on turf or are we playing on natural grass? That is a legit concern. My hope is that they're able to make it work with natural grass. How realistic is it? I don't know, but those details eventually will come out. But I think that's a legitimate concern for us Browns fans, because at the end of the day, I've seen what that MetLife turf has done to so many players. I don't want that happening here. We deserve better than that. And I hope that the Haslams are gonna put that extra investment in and do natural turf or natural grass, I should say, because I think that we have to protect our players. Because man, like last year, just seeing Nick Chubb go down, like that, it was a gut wrenching feeling. If he had that incident happen on a turf field, and it would have been a just plain turf injury like you see all the time, I think we would have been a lot more pissed than we were. Even though we definitely, I know you especially, were calling for Mika Fitzpatrick's head.
Still am.
Still.
Myles, do your thing. No, I'm just kidding. Not that.
That's
not
crazy.
That.
But so just in my opinion, this much investment, get it right, make it perfect, make it so that way anybody who complains about it is just out of their mind, and any rational person can see that they're just out of their mind. That's what I want to see out of this project. But man, just so much optimism with it, man. It's so gorgeous. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I have, I'm going to regret asking you this question.
Yeah.
But I do have one question for you.
Okay.
New Cleveland Browns Stadium opens up, first game. Everybody's pumped. Will Deshaun Watson be starting quarterback?
Well, what's he right now? Like 28, right? He's 27, 28?
I think something like that.
So we'd be looking at, let's say it's the 2029-2030 NFL season. Or no. Would it be the 28-29?
Yeah, should
regardless.
be.
So about 4 or 5 years, right? So you'd be looking at him between 31 and 33. I mean, if he is, it's like gonna be one of his last years, because it's very, very unlikely that his body holds up that long. And also, I mean, that answer could be a definitive yes or a definitive no at the end of this year. We'll have an answer. My opinion, yeah. I'm optimistic for him.
Wow.
I'm choosing to be optimistic. I'll say that. Until, you know what, I just want to try to go into the season with as much positivity as possible. So,
Fair enough.
What about you? What do you think?
If I had to put money on it, I'm hammering that no, because there is, I don't know, dude. I just think it's a fascinating question. It was brought up not just with Deshaun Watson, but of this current roster, who's still going to be a member of the Browns when
that's a very legitimate question. It's a very legitimate question, because I mean, is even Myles Garrett going to be here still?
I hope.
I hope so too, but I don't know, man. Like that's a long ways down the road. But but with that being said, any final thoughts on Brook Park before we move on to our next topic?
Very excited. Very excited. Very happy that this is kind of done.
Yeah. So no, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Now, let's move on. Let's discuss something that happened a little while ago. We probably should have talked about it on a podcast sooner, but you know what? There wasn't enough news surrounding, so fair enough. But Amari Cooper has signed a new contract. It's a restructured contract, giving him some more money, essentially making it so that way, he's going to get paid this year, and essentially buying him back onto the team for the start of camp. Derek, what are your thoughts on the Amari Cooper restructure, and with that, giving him more money up front as well?
Yeah, okay. Bear with me. I'm going to try to read this out the best I can because it's complicated, but this is what it is. $18.79 million signing bonus, $20 million total guaranteed, converted part of the base salary to a bonus, added 2 voidable years. Essentially, what all that means is Amari Cooper is getting an extra $5 million this year. This is not an extension. Okay, so my thoughts. I still believe, and I believe back when we talked about this the first time, I would not give Amari Cooper more than a 2-year contract extension, including this season. So I would give him another year, 2 years maximum. And the reason for that is Amari Cooper is 30 years old, and he has been unreal for this team. He's been fantastic. I think highly, highly, highly overlooked as far as what he's done for the Browns the last 2-3 years he's been in Cleveland. However, the reality of the situation is the Browns do need to get younger at wide receiver. They have made it clear that that is on the agenda as far as the roster building side of this team. And as great as Amari Cooper is, we have seen receiver after receiver after receiver just nosedive once you get to that 30-year-old mark. DeAndre Hopkins is playing, I would say, pretty well still. I think he's playing at a high level still. but he's certainly not prime D Hop. Julio Jones had an unreal fall off, which is sad, but he's, his legacy's cemented. But there are guys that, for whatever reason, you get to a certain age and the fall off just hits. I'm not saying that I think Amari Cooper is at that point or, we should expect that, but the history of the wide receiver position and the data that we've been shown, you need to plan for that. And it's better to be safe than sorry. So for the Browns not extending Amari Cooper, I'm not necessarily mad at that. I think that is a smart financial decision as far as long term goes. Obviously, we'll get into wide receiver discussions regarding somebody else here in a second, but I think as far as Amari Cooper goes, I want him on this team. I think he's an incredibly valued member of this team. I think we need him, or at least we need a Amari Cooper type if we're going to have a successful offense. I think the impact that he has is, you can't overstate it. He's been consistent. He's been very good for the Browns. And I understand why he did this, right? He essentially wanted to guarantee that he's going to make money in case he gets hurt. And, $20 million total in guarantees. Hey, congratulations, pal. There you go. But all in all, at least for the moment right now, Amari Cooper is a Cleveland Brown. And he is going to play out this season. And assuming he is on the Browns this season, we will reevaluate at the end of the season next year. Or this upcoming season, at the end of the season. What does all that mean? I'll dive into that more when we talk about the other guy. But as far as Amari Cooper goes, he is back. I say that without complete confidence, but he's back on the team for now. And everything, if it remains the same, will play this year as a Cleveland Brown. I'm happy about that. So that is what it is there. Tristan, Amari Cooper restructured. The Browns chose not to extend him. Essentially $25 million, $20 guaranteed. Void years, all sort of financial cap guru stuff that I am not equipped to explain to you. But yeah, long story short, Amari Cooper's back. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Listen, this is a guy that has been so crucial to this team ever since he's arrived. He has played that number one wide receiver spot, and to my knowledge, has never really let us down. He's been reliable, dependable. He's always showed up and played his heart out for us. And quite frankly, Amari Cooper has the type of personality and work ethic that you just love. You gravitate towards it. Similar to Nick Chubb, like they're not very outspoken guys, but you trust them to get their job done. And to lead by example and to want it more than the guy that they're lined up against and the guy they're matched up against. That's what you get with guys like Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb. And that's why we love them as much as we do. I'm happy that we got Amari Cooper locked in for this year. And I'm happy that we don't have to worry about these unnecessary stories going into camp that plague this team. Like it got done and over with. Like we're done with it now. Like that's not a source of drama. It's not a source of negativity for this team. And I like that because this is a team that needs everybody on board this year because it's gonna be a hell of a battle this year. Not a lot of gimme games, really. Every single game, especially in the second half of the season, pretty much are tough games, really tough games. You're not going to be handed anything this year, and you're going to need everybody going in the right direction. So I felt it was very important to get Amari Cooper locked down for this year and committed to this year. Now, and I guess I will pivot to this more when we go into our next topic, but I do feel like Amari Cooper doesn't get enough respect, especially from Cleveland Browns fans. We already know the outside NFL doesn't really respect him a whole lot, at least not enough, in my opinion. For me, he's a slam dunk top 10 wide receiver, but there are some people that say that he's no better than the guy that we're linked to, and that the guy that we're linked to is a lot better than him, and I just disagree. And I guess, you know what, I guess we kind of got into a point with this where we might as well transition into it because they really do go hand in hand.
Yeah.
The Cleveland Browns have been linked with Brandon Aiyuk. There was a report that came out a couple days ago where the Patriots and the Browns essentially had agreed to a framework of a deal for Brandon Aiyuk, and it came down to contract negotiations for him. The Patriots have since dropped out. The Steelers have kind of risen up, and now it kind of feels like it's Browns versus Steelers, seeing who's going to land this guy. And regardless, let's just talk about it strictly from a Browns perspective right now. Derek, how would you feel about landing Brandon Aiyuk, and how do you feel about the package that is being reported that the Browns are considering dealing Amari Cooper to bring Brandon Aiyuk in?
Yeah, so I want to get the facts straight here first, because this has been a whole lot of smoke screens, and I want to say right off the bat, Andrew Filipponi, Pony Express on Twitter, you're an asshole, dude. Absolute just clown show as far as reporting side of things go.
Don't even call him a reporter.
Yeah.
Don't call him a reporter. You're not reporting on credible news, man. Like it's like 2 or 3 times now he's done this where he's jumped the gun and he said the deal's done. They're finalizing the details. Like what a dick. I'm sorry, but what a dick. Like to be a source that you're like, and I'm standing up for Steelers fans here, and I hate the Steelers, but to say that you're a source of news for your team and that you're supposed to be credible for your team, and then do this multiple times in a row and think you've got access to information that Schefter and Rappaport doesn't have, you're not that special, guy. You're not. Quit getting the fans' hopes up, all right? As much as I hate them, quit doing it. Quit playing on their heartstrings for Twitter likes and for some impressions on Twitter. Yeah. Seriously, it annoys me. I'm sorry for saying that, but it pisses me off, seriously. Because if I'll say this right now, if any of the Browns reporters were doing this stuff, I'd lose my mind. I'd lose my mind. So, anyways, go ahead.
No, I literally was just going to say pretty much the same thing you just did. Andrew Filipponi is an asshole and should not be taken seriously whatsoever. He's tweeted out like 4 times today that this deal is done. They're working on contract negotiations. He's a clown. He's simply a clown. And again, I do feel bad for Steelers fans, because if I was a Steelers fan, like you said, I'd be like, okay, is this done or not? Like, what are we doing here? Here's the reality. And I want to make this clear, because whether a trade happens or not, I'm posting this because we're taking the time to talk about it. It is 10:07 on Wednesday night. Currently, there are no trade. The trade has not been done for Aiyuk with anybody. But these are the facts. These are the facts, stone cold facts. Okay? Trade talks are ongoing. The 49ers are in communication with other teams regarding trading Aiyuk. What is going on right now is very similar to the Deshaun Watson situation when the Browns traded for him. Aiyuk is only going to be traded to a place that he agrees to be traded to. The 49ers have trade packages allegedly from both the Browns. The Steelers is kind of a questionable one. I don't want to say for sure that they have a package put together, but the Patriots certainly did, and it was reported that the Patriots were willing to offer up to $32 million per year. Aiyuk didn't want to go there. Aiyuk did not want to go to the Patriots, so they are out. So the truth is, and this is all you need to know, trade talks are ongoing. No, it's not done to the Steelers yet. No, he's not done to the Browns. No, he's not done to any other team. Trade talks are ongoing. This is a situation that is unfolding now, and I would guess probably going to continue to unfold in the coming days. I hope it ends soon, whether if we get him or not, because it's kind of annoying. But there's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of smoke. I've seen that the Browns were out of it. I've seen that the Steelers were out of it. People are just tweeting out their ass right now, and nothing is real. Pay attention to the legitimate reporters. Pay attention to the people that you know are legitimate. Take their word. Don't listen to Andrew Filipponi. Don't listen to some of these other clowns. Just block it out, right? Fake news. Okay. With all that being said, that was a little rant for you. Brandon Aiyuk and the Browns. This is a interesting conversation. Tristan, we've talked about this before. In my opinion, I think Amari Cooper currently is better than Brandon Aiyuk, and you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So Amari Cooper currently, I would say you say better than Brandon Aiyuk. I know there's going to be people out there that disagree. We watch Amari Cooper every game, right? But there's the reality of the age situation, which I think is a huge factor. Amari Cooper is 30 years old. Brandon Aiyuk is 26. Amari Cooper in the last 2 seasons, 1,160 yards, 9 touchdowns. And then last year, 1,250 yards, 5 touchdowns. Brandon Aiyuk, 2022, 1,015 touchdowns, not touchdowns, that would be crazy. Yards, 8 touchdowns. 2023, 1,342 yards, 7 touchdowns. So, numbers wise, Brandon Aiyuk had a better year last year than Amari Cooper. The year prior to that, they were about 150 yards off, roughly. Touchdowns, about the same, close enough. So, the way I look at it is this. If you are making a trade for Brandon Aiyuk, you're essentially replacing Amari Cooper with somebody who's similar and younger, right? But I want to throw this out here, and I want to plant my flag on this now. Without a doubt in my mind, whether if the Browns get Brandon Aiyuk or not, or I should say if the Browns don't get Brandon Aiyuk, they are going to go balls to the wall, everything they can to go get T. Higgins. I think that Andrew Berry is wanting to take an approach at receiver that is, hey, we have not, what?
I got completely clickbaited by Ari Meyerhoff. It said the 49ers are working on finalizing deal with, and it's about former Lions starting safety Tracy Walker. I got completely baited. I thought, oh, this is it. This is our moment. This is the live hit. We had Saban retiring happen while recording. I thought this was it. I got so excited, and I'm annoyed. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it still could happen. It's crazier things have happened, but nevertheless, if the Browns don't get Aiyuk, I think they're going to go out and do everything they can for T. Higgins. I don't think that Andrew Berry is confident in drafting wide receiver. I think that's why not that we didn't get get good players, because I'm happy with Michael Hall Jr. I'm very happy with Zak Zinter, but you look at who was available a couple picks before, right? We had mentioned it. The Browns didn't go get him, right? I think the Browns are a little bit gun shy when it comes to drafting receivers. With that being said, I would love the Browns if they want to go young at receiver to draft next year, because guess what? Zachariah Branch, Isaiah Bond, Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden. There are 4 guys right there that I would love to have on the Cleveland Browns. But I think Andrew Berry's a little bit gun shy when it comes to receivers. So I think they're just going to be like, hey, guess what? We don't feel we can evaluate the position that well. Let's just go get a guy. Whether if it's Aiyuk, whether if it's T. Higgins, whether if it's somebody else that we don't know. I would love CeeDee Lamb. I don't think that's realistic, but somebody who is established. That's the point I'm trying to make. I think that is the route that the Browns are going to go. Now, I know it's been long-winded, but wrapping up here. Aiyuk, I think, is similar to Amari Cooper in the sense that he's been overlooked as well. I think Brandon Aiyuk is surrounded on a great, great team with George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. Jennings was great in the Super Bowl. That team is very talented. I think Brandon Aiyuk is the best pure receiver on that team. I think he is. I love Deebo. I think Debo's great. But as far as a pure receiver goes, I think Aiyuk is better. If I were the 49ers, I would not give up Aiyuk. I would rather give up Deebo. That's my personal opinion, whether if we get him or not. So I think very highly of Brandon Aiyuk. I think he's a very good player. I'm going to be pissed if he ends up in Pittsburgh. Do we need him? No. We don't need him right now. If the Browns don't get Brandon Aiyuk, it's not like we're in some sort of terrible situation. You still have Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, Bell, and Thrash. That's your wide receiver room right now. That is more than okay, right? But if we do get Aiyuk, that simply means you get younger at receiver, similar production, younger age, and you're going to have to lock him up, and you'll have more stability at the position long term. Versus Amari Cooper right now, it's kind of a wait and see situation. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Tristan. It's crazy. It's crazy right now with Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, let me start off by first and foremost saying this. A lot of the points that you made were spot on. Completely agree with you. Let me kind of go back to Amari Cooper here, because let me kind of tie in an argument here. So when you said that it's not necessarily a need for Brandon Aiyuk, I agree. It's not a need right now. I think that by trading Amari Cooper for Brandon Aiyuk, you're preserving yourself in the future and kind of adding stability at the position in the future. I don't necessarily believe it makes you better. I don't think that adding a Brandon Aiyuk while subtracting an Amari Cooper changes your Super Bowl odds. Like, I just don't think that happens. Because Amari Cooper is a very productive receiver for us. He has been. And he hasn't proven that he's taken that step back yet. So, at this moment in time, we have to go off of what we've seen most recently, and that is that Amari Cooper is still an elite receiver. And losing him would not be great. Now, if you were to add in Brandon Aiyuk and keep Amari Cooper, which it doesn't sound like is likely to happen, but if that's what they did, then that's a whole nother ball game. Now your Super Bowl odds do go up, because now you got two guys who are elite receivers and a third guy Jerry Jeudy, who you believe can get to that next level, and has shown loads, leaps and bounds of potential. We'll see what we can get out of him, but so that's what I would look at with this deal. I would definitely be annoyed if he went to the Steelers 100%. I have to be honest, I think he is going to go to Pittsburgh. That's my gut right now. It sounds like that's the team he's most interested in joining, and seems like they've got a lot of interest as well. Where I think that could break down is trade package. I don't know if the trade package that they are looking at, I don't know if they're going to be able to meet the Niners' needs. Like that's where I'm kind of at right now. So we'll have to wait and see, for sure. But with that being said, like that right there, I would say, is my thoughts on where I think he's going to go. I feel like Amari Cooper is being disrespected in this conversation. People saying that, Brandon Aiyuk would come in. There are some people that are saying he'd come in and be better than Amari Cooper. There are some people saying that, and just more so saying that essentially they don't have a problem with trading Amari Cooper, in that there's no, I feel like there's a lack of an attachment to Amari Cooper, at least personally that I have. Amari Cooper has been an amazing, amazing, amazing receiver for this football team. The best receiver this franchise has had since coming back to Cleveland. 1,000%. I don't even think it's close. We had 1 year of Josh Gordon, and that 1 year of Josh Gordon, Amari Cooper's been doing it too. I think that he just gets so underlooked as a receiver here, and I hate that. And this is a guy that wants to be here. He said he wants to retire a Cleveland Brown, and when we look at our recent past, how many guys have we had that have said that stuff before? And have meant it and have been elite players at the NFL, at the top level. Guys that I feel we could win a Super Bowl with. I feel like we can win a Super Bowl with Amari Cooper. I think that the narrative around the Brandon Aiyuk trade, I got to be honest, it scares me doing a Cooper for Aiyuk trade, because Aiyuk is not a premier guy in his offense. He'd be coming here and stepping into that role and elevating himself to that role. Now, I'm not saying he can't handle that. That's not at all what I'm saying. But it's a completely different thing. The expectations are a completely different level. He's going to get tougher assignments, right? He's going to have guys, if teams scheming up on him specifically, his job's going to get a lot harder if he becomes the X, the main guy. It's going to get a lot harder. Amari Cooper's had a lot of experience dealing with that stuff. And this would be his first year doing it. And for me, I'm concerned about it. And this is also a guy that comes from a Kyle Shanahan system, and Kyle Shanahan's a genius. How much more could we realistically get out of the guy? That's where my concerns start to set in. And people like the flashy moves, the big names and stuff like that, but people also have to remember the grass is not always greener. It very rarely ever is, especially when you have something that's good. We look back at that Odell Beckham trade and we think, what a travesty, right? It just did not work. We had 1 year with Freddie Kitchens where statistically he was good, but it didn't work. It didn't work. And what did we give up? We gave up a lot, dude. Let me think. It was Zeitler, who at the time was a Pro Bowl caliber / All-Pro right guard, who, until Wyatt Teller came along, which we hit the lottery with him, we struggled to replace at that position. The pick that we traded ended up being Dexter Lawrence, who, we signed Dalvin Tomlinson to a very, very expensive deal, and we had such a big need at that position. Imagine if we had taken him with the 13th overall pick that year.
It
would have never been an issue.
If I'm not mistaken, that draft was the same draft that had DK Metcalf, AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we missed out on that. For me, I just look at it and I say, at the time, we were all screaming excitement for this move because we thought that it was a move that would work for us, and we didn't see the potential downsides of it. And I gotta be honest, man, that Odell trade, it maybe is influencing my opinion a little bit too much on doing this trade, but I wouldn't do it if Amari Cooper's in the deal. I honestly, I really would not. Even if it was 1-for-1, I'd scratch my head and I'd really have to think about it. And it's not going to be that. It's going to be Cooper and a pick, and I'm not sold on that, especially when this is supposed to be a team this year that is supposed to challenge and compete to win the Super Bowl. I've got a really hard time, coming to terms with the fact that if we do that deal, that we'd be better off for it. I don't know if we would. For me, there's question marks doing that. But I get it. Brandon Aiyuk, he's an exciting player. He's young. He had a really great season last year and really showed out, and he's very talented. I'm not going to deny that. And if Pittsburgh gets him, I will be pissed and I'll be a little bit worried, right? But at the same time, it's completely different circumstances. Pittsburgh needs another receiver. It's George Pickens, and that's it. Freiermuth is a good tight end, but I don't think he's an elite level tight end. I don't think he's there, at least yet. They need another receiving threat. They need Brandon Aiyuk. That's a need for their team. That's a guy that can elevate their team. And that's why I'd be pissed if they got him. But for us, I don't know if it would do that, especially if we're getting rid of Amari.
Yeah. I feel weird about it. I kind of feel the same way you do, but at the same time, there's some differences there. I'm not all that worried about Ayuk as far as what his production would be. I think he would continue to be what he's been. Obviously, yes, it's a different place, different whatever. But the Shanahan offense, similar system. I think enough of the offensive game plan and play style. I know it's going to change a little bit, but I think it's going to translate enough that Ayuk could, hypothetically, if it were to happen, come in and really step into that role and pretty much, I don't want to say have it down, but be knowledgeable enough about the offense and be a good scheme fit for the team. I think it would make a lot of sense as far as the scheme fit and those sorts of things. But what fascinates me, and I cannot wait to see, whether if it's Cleveland, whether if it's Pittsburgh, whether if it's whoever gets done with Ayuk, what is the trade package going to look like? Because if I'm Pittsburgh, some of the things that I've heard, another thing too is like Ayuk's going to be choosing. And what does he value most? Because it seems like he values money, but at the same time, he turned down the Patriots, which was allegedly $32 million a year. With Pittsburgh, this is not me hating as a Browns fan. I think this is just a realistic view of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a team where, you could say the same thing about us. I completely understand that. But Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, that's your quarterback situation right now. I cannot confidently say either one of those two guys are going to be there for the long term. I don't think Russell Wilson is for sure. Justin Fields, I would not be all that surprised. But even that's a gamble. Yeah, you could say Deshaun Watson, same thing, and I have nothing to argue with that. But I would say that the quarterback situations are very similar as far as uncertainty goes. Supporting cast around him, I mean, you mentioned it. The Steelers have George Pickens, who's great, but he's got some concerns as far as his, character stuff, but which I think gets overblown a little bit. But it would be Ayuk and Pickens. Calvin Austin, I'm not worried about whatsoever. They signed, I want to say, Van Jefferson, which not concerned about him whatsoever. They drafted Roman Wilson, which I think is going to be a good pick for them. I like Roman Wilson, but he's a question mark. Ayuk would not have all that help around them. The Steelers still are working on their offensive line. They drafted the kid out of Washington in the first round this year. We'll see how that pans out.
I think like 2 or 3 of their first 4 picks were O-line.
Yeah.
I want to say. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but I know that that's been a focus for them.
Yeah. So they're rebuilding their offensive line. They're trying to figure out their quarterback situation. Running back, I don't want to say it's a question mark because I think it's fairly obvious Jaylen Warren's going to be the guy in the near future. Najee's going to be moved. And then at tight end, Freiermuth is great, but also you're going to have to give up something to go get Brandon Aiyuk. And I've heard they want Pickens. I've heard they want Freiermuth. I've heard picks. Listen, if I'm the Steelers, as great as Brandon Aiyuk is, I would much rather go the draft route. I mean, the Steelers are going to be the Steelers. And you can take that for what you will, but this is my opinion. And agree, disagree, I don't care. The Steelers are going to be a team, in my opinion. Again, remember, they have the second hardest schedule behind us. So that matters. I think they're probably going to be around a 500-win team, probably a game or two above 500. They're probably going to be picking late teens, early 20s as far as the draft goes, somewhere in there. And I personally do not view them as a contender. I think they're a couple moves away from being a contender, but at least in my opinion, they have more questions than they do answers, and significant questions at that. And yeah, you could say the same thing about the Browns quarterback being the number one question, but we saw last year the team rally and go 11-6 with no quarterback, no running back, offensive line torn up, all sorts of injuries across the board. If I'm Aiyuk, I mean, I don't know what he wants. And I think the only reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers are gaining as much traction as they are within this conversation is because of the logo and the name brand. I don't think it has anything to do with the team, with the history in the last couple years. Mike Tomlin's a great coach. We talk about it all the time here on this podcast, how we respect Mike Tomlin and he's great. But I mean, I'm old enough to remember Steelers fans last year begging for his head, and we thought it was crazy. Now, Steelers have extended Mike Tomlin, and he's probably going to be there, barring some sort of tragic fall off. But I don't know what this is going to look like. I think it makes a whole lot more sense for the Browns to be like, okay, we got a guy who is in a similar system to us, who's 26 years old, production-wise, around the same production. If we bring him in, we would have essentially, if everything translates right, similar production at a younger position, and you could extend him and get him locked up, and then you have stability at the wide receiver position. Even if that means getting rid of Amari Cooper, which I know emotionally, like, I don't want to get rid of Amari Cooper. But on paper, it makes a lot of sense. Versus for the Steelers, I mean, am I crazy? I just don't see. I don't see how it benefits them all that much. Tell me if I'm wrong. But what do they give up? What do they give up? Would you give up Freiermuth for Aiyuk? Freiermuth and a third or second round pick for Aiyuk.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I was the Steelers, yeah. Because I here's the thing, like, listen, Roman Wilson could absolutely jump in and be a killer number 2, possibly even a number 1. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the receiver position is so important. And for me, like, Freiermuth, I really, really like him. I really do. I think you can get good production out of tight ends that aren't as good.
Yeah. They have Darnell Washington, which I like him.
Yes,
but
they
I
do
don't
have
know.
him as well. So I forgot about him, actually. But that's another reason why you could do that. But I personally would do it if I was them. But at the same time, does that mean that they would do it? What are they willing to give up? Because at the same time, like, Pittsburgh, yes, it clearly looks like they're in the driver's seat here, and they look like they are probably going to get him. But at the same time, like, people have to remember San Francisco is not going to do a deal with a team that isn't going to give them something that's going to help them win right now. So for me, the way I look at it is they're either going to get a first-round pick, San Francisco is, from the Steelers, or they're going to get like a second or a third and a starter for them. I don't know, man. I just feel like the Browns have more assets that they could move that I think that the 49ers would find as more intriguing and also more like fitting to them. Like, I could see us doing like Cooper and Conklin. I could see it, man. Like, I think both of those guys go there and they start. And they add to that team, and they that actually makes their team better. I could see like Cooper Conklin in the third or something like that. Like, I really could see that. I don't know, man. Like, I just think that we have more assets to give up that they would want. More guys that are able to help for this year and now, which they need, they want. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting if Pittsburgh pulls it off. I mean, hats off to them. I think it's somebody who's worthwhile getting. But I'm sorry, I cut you off. You keep going.
No, you're good. I was just it fascinates me. Like, this whole thing fascinates me because, and I'll say this whether if we get Aiyuk or not. So please don't be like, oh, you're only saying that because you didn't get him. I don't think Aiyuk is a top 10 receiver. I don't. I think Aiyuk is a very good receiver. I think he's really, really good, and he's underrated and overlooked. But compared to CeeDee Lamb, like, it's not even close, right? Not even close. You know, I don't even know who you would want to compare him to. But, I mean, this is like, the way that this is being handled is like Tyreek Hill is on the market, or Jamar Chase, or Jefferson, or somebody like that. I think Aiyuk is really good. I think he is. But my biggest thing with Brandon Aiyuk is I don't see a whole lot more ceiling with him. And I could be wrong. But I think that what we're seeing now, 1,342 yards, 7 touchdowns, I think that's what he is, and I think that's what he's going to be. I would like if the Browns traded for him, I would be happy and I would feel comfortable with it, because then you're getting more stability at the position, right? Now, if you were to ask me the question, and Bengals fans, you're going to love this one. Who would I rather have, T. Higgins or Brandon Aiyuk? I'd T. Higgins for me. I don't know. Tristan, it fascinates me because I really don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know what the trade package for Aiyuk is going to look like, and I don't know what the deal is going to look like, because we have seen Jimmy Haslam front so much damn money that it would not shock me at all if we gave Aiyuk if we traded for Aiyuk, right? If he agreed to come to the Browns, which I don't think is going to happen, but hypothetically if it did, would not shock me at all if we gave him a huge contract and a giant portion of that is signing bonus, and he just signs that check and it right into the bank account. Because that's what we do. People wonder how we get away with the Deshaun Watson contract and extending guys. This is what we do. We have an owner who is willing to write huge checks and just be like, hey, signing bonus. Merry Christmas. Like,
I mean, he's also, like, quite literally just hours ago announced a $2.5 billion stadium project. Like,
yeah,
to further prove your point,
mm-hmm.
the Brandon Aiyuk contract would take it up to $2.6 million, which is insane. But he just doesn't care, which is awesome. Awesome for us.
It is, but at the same time, this is just so fascinating to me. So fascinating to me because of the teams that it's down to, right? I don't think Aiyuk is all that much of a needle mover for us. I think it's just more of the same. You get a guy who's younger. I don't think he's that much of a needle mover for Pittsburgh if they have to give up one of their big pieces. It's weird. This is one of those situations where it's not like Deshaun, where it's like, okay, the last time we saw him play, he was an MVP level quarterback. Aiyuk is really good. Okay. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, when was the last time you could remember a situation like this where a guy was very clearly about to get traded in the middle of training camp, like before the season started? He's a good player, like especially on a team that's supposed to contend. I mean,
Super Bowl team.
A Super Bowl team, yeah. Like, it's such a weird and unique situation, and I gotta wonder how this resolves. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. I really would not be shocked if the Niners just look at it and say, like, you know what? The trade packages that we're getting, we're not happy with. Like, let's say, like, Brandon Aiyuk says, like, I'm not going to Cleveland. I'm not going to New England. Like, I just want Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's not able to give them the package that they want. Okay, Brandon, you know what? We'll just restructure your deal, give you the money you want this year. We'll let you walk as a free agent next year, because we need to win this year that badly. Like, they could do that, right? I'm not saying that that's probable or likely, but it's not out of the possibilities. Like, it's just that's where this thing is like, I don't remember a situation like this before, and it just feels so, like, fluid. Like, it feels like it can move any direction at any moment. Like, I mean, hell, I feel like we could see, like, the Washington Commanders are getting Brandon Aiyuk in, like, 5 minutes from now. Like,
Yeah.
that's how this feels. And the reporting on it, it's been so weird. Coming from all different directions, not really even that concrete of sources. Like, I don't know, man. This is just a really weird saga going into the year. But also not only that, but I really hope that Hard Knocks is getting some good footage of the Browns and Steelers throughout this time.
Yeah.
Because that would be fun. But I think it's only regular season that we're doing it for, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, my biggest questions are, what does Ayuk want? What does he really want? Not what's being reported. What does he really want? 2, trade package. What is that going to look like? Because it's being talked about like it's crazy. And 3, what's his contract going to look like? Is he going to get paid crazy? Like, I really do think that this is either all legit and, it's going to be a big trade, going to be a hefty contract extension with whoever it is, or it's smoke screens. And the 49ers are just trying to get what they can get. But there's one thing that is certain. I don't know how much of it you've seen, Tristan, but they're talking as if he is done with the 49ers. Like, Christian McCaffrey was talking about it, said as a former teammate, made sure to use the words former. I saw a press conference with Kyle Shanahan and the owner of the 49ers. I don't know how real it is. Anything could be AI and fake these days. But did not seem too thrilled with Brandon Aiyuk. He's
There was
gone.
also there was an interview with Ryan Clark that I read, or I saw a little bit of on YouTube, and he felt like he was being disrespected by the Niners. So I feel like it's all sides are kind of like, you know what, this isn't going to work. But at the same time, you never know. Never know what can happen. It's the NFL. Things move quickly. So
Yeah. I don't know. I think I've kind of said everything I need to say. I think there's only so much we can say on this because we really don't know.
yeah, like it's so crazy. Like, I seriously, like, I've been looking at my phone, refreshing Twitter, because I just had this feeling throughout this recording that we were going to get something, and we haven't. So I don't know, man. It's such a weird situation, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, but well, that's all I got. If you're ready to wrap it up here.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it from us, from the Brook Park Brownies. But hopefully we'll be able to get more consistent with the uploads now that there is actual news coming in, and some exciting things going on around the NFL. We didn't even talk about interesting bits from camp. We may or may not. We'll see. But whatever we find interesting and whatever we think is worth reporting on. But Derek, any final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Zadarius Smith is okay. That was a little scare.
Yeah.
Dante Foreman had a really scary situation. He seems to be okay. So
Yep.
that's good.
Yeah. Prayers up for Deontay Foreman. Thank goodness he seems to be good.
Yeah.
Very good to hear about that. Never good news when somebody has to be like helicoptered to a local hospital. So glad he's okay.
The only thing I thought was, it's not funny. It is not funny. It is not funny. Okay. But for a select group of people out there who would get this reference, I did think it was funny that the verbiage that they used was local medical facility instead of hospital. Because anytime in wrestling, when Vince McMahon was in charge, he refused to say the words hospital, and it was always referred to as local medical facility because I guess the word hospital pissed him off for no reason at all. Makes no sense. So, yeah, when I saw Dante Foreman take it to local medical facility, I was like, did Vince McMahon write this article? Like, what are we doing? But no. That's all from me. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're still watching here, I don't know why you are, but I appreciate you. So, all right, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.